into. And that's really the thing, is we want to make it so that people from all walks of life can participate. One of the things that in looking at this, we decided that it made sense to not try and do things too big, to just keep things simple. And so we have various trips where are kind of introductory trips where folks will go and do some trekking in Nepal or go diving in Indonesia or whatever, and have an interesting vacation. But at the same time, we'll take a day or two and introduce them to a project so that they feel like you know, there's more out there than just going to a beach and reading a book. And we're not really about doing vacations. That was something that Off the Rails had done. And we would pull together trips for folks, and then at the end of it, do 1 or 2 days. But Social Planet is really about making connections. And so if someone is traveling somewhere, they can contact us, and we'll give them all the information they need to make their trip as enriched as they want to make it. So.
Well, that is powerful. Tell us about some of the other projects. What else have you done in other parts of the world?
Well, there's one that's really fun that's going to be global. We're just now starting it, and it's called Little Picasso. And the neat thing about Little Picasso is it's similar to Project Duffel Bag, but what we're doing is getting art supplies to children all around the world, and letting them put down whatever. We don't want to direct them, we just want them to a free flow, but see messages of hope in their drawings and in their art. And in doing that, we want to take that, bring it back, and then market those in such a way that the profits and the funds can go back to that local community. If we do come across a Little Picasso, we want to try and establish funds and scholarships so they can continue their education in art and be able to take it, because a lot of these children are locked into a lifestyle that they can't escape from.
That's right.
So,
well, what do you mean
so Little Picasso is fun.
What do you mean locked into a lifestyle they can't escape?
Well, a good example would be there's an organization in Nepal, and it's EWN, Empowering Women of Nepal. And there's 3 sisters, Nepalese sisters, and they started a trekking school for women. And an example of people being locked in is that in that environment, women, it's very hard for them to develop an income, to develop a lifestyle, and even worse for single mothers. And it's not, this isn't an indictment on that culture, it just is what that is. But at the same time, some of these gals could benefit by being able to have a profession. And I actually found out about them from an organization and a friend of mine who I used to work with, Meg Taylor, who started an organization called Lending Promise. And they actually do microloans. So that's how I found out about them. And they had done a microloan to help get this going. But it's funny that a lot of these societies, to us, it's so easy to go start a business or to change what we're doing. But in a lot of these other cultures, it's almost like they're destined to be a certain way. Another example would be in Indonesia. There's an NGO in Bali called Kupu Kupu, and what they do is they'll take individuals that are handicapped in one form or another, or challenged even mentally, and they help train them to do crafts and this and that so that they can earn a living. Because again, culturally, it can be very hard for someone in that situation. So that's, you know, what I mean by sometimes people are kind of locked in.
Well, I remember traveling in, I was on the border between Peru and Bolivia, and I looked across the field in this, you know, those towns where they stamp your passport, they're pretty ugly, frankly. Right. There's no escaping those. And I remember looking across the field at a young girl, probably about 8 years old, and she kind of looked up at me, and I thought, this is her life, in that field, in some dusty little traveler town. And
I saw the same thing. I can remember having tea. I was on a trek and having tea and seeing 4 little kids bouncing up the trail, and you know, there's no roads. The trail is literally the road. But they're bouncing up, and it's early, 5:30. You know, it's dawn, but 5:30, and having my chai and talking to a few friends, and they're bouncing up the road, having a good time, and boom, they jump off right over the edge into this field, and it looks like it drops off 3,000 feet. You know, so this is in Nepal, and but out come the tools, and they're working,
How
before
old?
school. Oh, they must have been 6 to 10, 12, something like that. Yeah.
You know, it becomes the work of a hard life in a way.
Yeah.
Not that they see it that way necessarily.
Well, that's the thing, is it, and that's one of the things that we don't want to do, is we don't want to try and change the culture. An interesting story that was told to me once was a gentleman. They saw a need for clean water in a village in Central America. So I think it was Central America. So they ended up creating this clean water well, and they had pipes, and they made it so that the people didn't have to walk a half a mile or a mile to the stream to get the fresh water and back. And it worked, and everything was great, and they came back about a year later, and people just weren't really using it. And so the gentleman was like, well, what's going on here? Why aren't the villagers, why aren't people using this? Well, it turns out that that walk, that half-mile walk or 1 mile walk, that was the only time that the young single kids could be together. And so it was actually a courting ritual to walk down there, get the water, and walk back. They would have conversation and this and that. So what seemed like a great idea, and I would love it, because I used to have to carry water when I went camping, and my dad would make me do this. My arms would ache on the way back. But what seemed like a great idea actually for that culture didn't really fit. So that's why for us it's we always want to just go in and ask, what do you need? What are you looking for? And
what have been some of the most unusual things that have happened on some of your trips?
Oh, good Lord. Let me see. Well, it usually has to do with the travelers, and one thing or another might happen. But once we had a group of about 10 people, 10 or 12 folks, and there was supposed to be 4 people flying in from Delhi, and our transportation was set up to get into the mountains, and these 4 people didn't show up. So I stayed back in Kathmandu at the airport and waited for them to come in the next day. And we had some local guides, and they took 6 or 7 folks on, and these folks from Delhi came in later that day, and I rushed them. We just moved, flew up to Pokhara, got on our transportation, and we literally were getting to the guest house by flashlight, and we walked for maybe a mile and a half. But it was so cool. I mean, it seems kind of like, oh, it's scary, but it was actually really, it was a neat experience.
Well, you must have a lot of adventures. Do you find that people, your friends, are envious, or are they thinking you're a little crazy?
Yes.
Yes to both?
To some degree, yeah. I think a lot of it was, well, how did you end up, I mean, how did you work this out to where you can do this? But I think at first there was a little bit of the craziness. I remember being in India and sending an email off to my sister and saying, I'm gonna take a year off. And she wrote back and was like, are you sure? I mean, a year, that's kind of a long time, and is that gonna hurt your career? And I said, oh, no, it'll be fine. And then I don't know where I was the second year out, and it was the end of the first year, and again goes out an email and is like, I'm taking another year off. And I remember she wrote back, now this is just crazy. but she realized now I found my place, and I had already gone through startups and been there, done that, and there was really nowhere else to go. And so I could just keep doing what I had been doing, or I could start a new path. And I didn't really know, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I didn't really want to go back. But in doing that, taking that time and traveling, is when I found that everything that I had done in corporate America and in startups got me to a point to do what I'm doing now.
Well, how does it translate now, for instance, to help you?
Well, can you ask me that one more time?
In other words, like what your corporate experience and your success in that arena in business, how is it helping you now?
Well, one of the things, and this isn't to knock nonprofits, because I think there's not enough good being done in the world. But one of the great things about having done what I've done is that I can come in and look in a project and I can tell if it's sustainable or not sustainable. One of the biggest challenges with a lot of these communities is there may be an opportunity or there may be a business model for those folks to make money, but is it sustainable? And does it hurt the culture? Does it actually empower those folks? Because it's been proven that if you just come in and give things without any effort, then it doesn't really help. So I think having that business background and being able to instantly tell if this is doable or not, if this would fly in the real world, then let's make it happen. Now, when we're putting in new doors and windows in a school, that's a different story. But if we're developing, like there was one thing in the island of Kalimantan in Indonesia, and there the orangutans are really suffering and struggling. But there's a lot of poaching that's going on. The reason is because the locals can get more money for the orangutan, the baby orangutan or an adult, than they can doing the work that's available to them. So one of the things that we've done is looked at business models where we can help them, still help the orangutans, but help the local community. And so we're establishing tourism to come see the orangutans, but the bungalows and the restaurants and everything is done by the local community in a co-op fashion. So again, that's a great business model. And so I think some of the things that I've done in the past in being able to start companies and see products and know how to market them helps us with what we're doing.
Absolutely. What's your vision for the future?
To get everybody connected. We're establishing social networking and some pretty intense technology with the website. It's not launched yet, but we're looking to do a soft launch in August, and I think we'll have it fully online by the end of the year. But to take some of and I was in Silicon Valley forever, so technology's something that I'm pretty used to.
So Dave, if people want to get in touch with you and your organization, how would they do that?
Well, the best way would be to, they could contact me via email, and it's Dave, D-A-V-E.Douglas, D-O-U-G-L-A-S, @socialplanet.org. And they can go to the website at www.socialplanet.org.
And what message of hope would you leave us with tonight?
Just that the message of hope is that you really can make a difference. And it's not that hard. It's just getting involved, finding something that's interesting. That's the most important thing. If it's not interesting, don't do it. You're just going to get tired of it. But if it's interesting, then you're going to, stay at it and find a real connection with the local individuals.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for
very much.
tuning in. It's our hope that we've given you hope tonight.